right now, it's kind of my interesting research season where I dig into what the left did for the entire last year, right? Because at the Free Enterprise Project, essentially what we've done is taken the liberal shareholder activist model and we've done a 180 on it. So that involves constant upkeep, right? It's kind of like your car. You got to change your oil every 3,000 miles or it's going to get upset with you. And so what I do in this time of the year, it takes me about 2 to 3 months, is I unpack every single shareholder resolution that the left filed in the previous season. So every resolution that was presented at a shareholder meeting this spring, and even ones they filed and withdrew. Because as we know, filing a shareholder resolution is really the opening salvo in a negotiation. And so not most, but 48% of shareholder proposals that are filed are actually withdrawn at some point by the filer because they've reached a negotiation with the company. And so those don't often see the light of day. So you got to do some real digging to find them. And so one thing that is very interesting to see about last shareholder season, and there's a new focus on the left, and the new focus is hate, okay? And it's what the left defines as hate. And this is, of course, an amorphous term that is in the eye of the beholder. And the left has started to file resolutions with companies such as Amazon. So the Nathan Cummings Foundation, I came across this proposal. They filed a shareholder resolution asking Amazon to essentially digitally burn books that the left doesn't like. So this is an actual attempt at limiting speech. And we know that some tech companies are already involved in limiting conservative speech to start with. And this is pressure from outside groups asking that to be amplified. So, of course, it's a goalpost moving situation too, right? So while today they may define the Proud Boys or the KKK as hate speech, all they need to do is get the policy in place and then they change the definition of hate to expand to whatever they want. And of course, we know conservative thought and speech is really what they're after and they're trying to remove from the public sphere. And so while Amazon didn't adopt that proposal this year, it's going to continue to come back up. And they don't just target one part of society or one part of the corporate marketplace, right? This proposal, or I should say a similar proposal, was put in at MasterCard, right? Because what's a corollary to speech? Money. And so MasterCard received a shareholder proposal that actually got a significant amount of support when it went to a vote, that MasterCard should not process payments for hate groups. So what does this mean? This is all in conjunction with the Southern Poverty Law Center that describes mainstream Christian organizations such as the Family Research Council, Focus on the Family, and Alliance Defending Freedom in the same hate category as the Ku Klux Klan. So they say essentially they're trying to make it so that donors to these organizations you won't be able to process your payments through a credit card if you're a donor to one of these 501c3 organizations. And this is all encompassing because if you look at the politics of this, right? Just 2 weeks ago, the US House, there was legislation introduced that if you are on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list, if you are part of the SPLC fake hate list, let's just call it what it is, a fake hate list, you should no longer be eligible for nonprofit status in the United States of America under the tax code. This is all coordinated, but that's very real. The far left of the US House wants to take away the tax-exempt status of Alliance Defending Freedom and the Family Research Council. And part of me always thinks that those organizations should wear that as a badge of honor to a degree, but this is true warfare. This is serious warfare that would take away their ability to defend Jack Phillips, for example, the baker in Colorado that was going to be put out of business because the state was trying to force him to make a cake that went against his religious beliefs, okay? So this would take away their ability to defend those clients if they don't have funding. And it's a real world issue that's very tangible to these organizations. And it's just so interesting that the left has really hung on to the Southern Poverty Law Center, even as recent months have revealed numerous improprieties that have gone on at that organization. They themselves have actually had sexist, racist complaints against their leaders and had to oust their founder and their president in recent months. It's come to the attention of even the mainstream media that they're offshoring more than $130 million. What's that about? They're technically a nonprofit. How are they offshoring that much money? Why isn't the IRS looking into that? Right. So again, what I'm seeing in the corporate sphere is this coordinated effort to go after conservative speech and conservative money. And this is really just a new iteration on something they've been doing for, decades, right? We can go back to 2012, for example, and look at the hundreds of shareholder resolutions that were filed with corporate members of the American Legislative Exchange Council, known as ALEC, right? Because ALEC is a highly successful organization that works at the state level to pass lower regulation, lower taxes, pro-business efforts, essentially. The left hates them. So the left demonized ALEC, claimed they were racist with absolutely no evidence, no proof. They just say it. Then the media runs with it. And shareholder resolutions came in, and ALEC lost over 100 corporate members through that campaign. And again, it's coordinated. There's a lot of groups working together in concert. There's the shareholder activists who file the resolutions, but that's just part of it. They have other sister organizations that run fake studies that back up their proposals. Then they have actual activist protesters who will show up to a shareholder meeting where one of these proposals is being presented. And then, of course, when the proposals are actually voted upon, they have the proxy advisory services that recommend votes in the pocket of the left. So these proposals, it's a rigged vote. They actually get a higher percentage of the vote than it would reflect in reality, because a lot of folks just robo-vote with whatever the proxy advisors tell them to do. They don't actually dig into the matters, right? So a lot of investment fund managers are kind of derelict in their duty in this process. So it makes these boards and these folks sitting in the C-suites think that there's a lot of support out there amongst their investors for these resolutions, when we know there really isn't. And so it's through this coordination that these proposals get more power than they should have, right? And so there's the rub. And so what we're seeing now with the coordination of the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list and the shareholder activist filers, it's really just an iteration on the ALEC model that they started in 2012. It's just a new frontier. And again, as I mentioned, they're working with political actors, and they're trying to get the IRS to move in and take away their tax exempt status. And so what I'm doing right now in my little slice of heaven is I'm working to combat this any way that I can. And so part of it is an educational campaign to explain that there isn't actually support for these hate proposals, right? And then what they are. They are an attempted silence of somebody that you disagree with politically and on public policy issues. That's it. And they're using corporate America as a tool to achieve that end. And here's my warning to conservatives. If we don't coalesce together, just because you may not be on the hate list today, again, you might be tomorrow. They can change the definition very, very quickly. Coalesce behind Alliance Defending Freedom and the Family Research Council and those that need your support right now. Use whatever tools are in your toolkit to come to their defense and their aid. I'm going to use corporate activism to do that. Whatever part of the movement that you work in, use your efforts, best efforts, to come to their defense. Because when they come for one, they come for all. And the second they take down ADF, they're going to need to find a new target.